I wish it would be running like that off mine. Mine's still this deep.
All right, everybody, welcome to the February 24th special assessment hearing for Big Pine Trail. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council, this is a preliminary improvement hearing for Big Pine Trail improvements. I'm Dave Reese with Woodseth Smith & Nolting. The City Council authorized us to begin this process of the Chapter 429 assessment procedure for special assessments for Big Pine Trail, beginning with a feasibility study. And this was authorized last fall, and we completed that study. It was approved by the City Council, and it's moved on to setting this preliminary improvement hearing where we'll talk about what's being proposed in the way of improvements for the roadway. We'll talk about the estimated costs for the project.
Hard to hear.
Okay. We'll talk about the proposed improvements, the estimated costs of the project, the method of assessment for the project, and the tentative schedule. This is just one step along the way of the assessment procedure. The next step after this one, after receiving your comments today, would be for the City Council to consider whether or not to order the preparation of plans and specifications and put the project out for bids. So no bids have been taken for this project as of this time. All of the costs that we're looking at are based on estimates. The City Council will be meeting this afternoon to consider that question of whether to move on to the step of preparing plans and specifications. And that meeting will be held at 4:30 this afternoon. So if you want to stick around for that to see the outcome, you're welcome to do that. I'll go through the highlights of the feasibility report. Then there will be an opportunity for the City Council to ask questions, and then we'll open it up to public comment questions following that. Okay? So the first illustration from the report just identifies the project location, and the roadway is all of Big Pine Trail from County State Aid Highway 3 to the end of the maintained portion, the city maintained portion of the road. I think most people are aware that the roadway goes into Mission Township for a portion of its segment. However, all of the road is maintained by the City of Cross Lake. Also, a portion of the roadway does not have established right-of-way through lands administered by the state, the DNR. There is a plat, a series of plats wherein most of you own property, and there is dedicated right-of-way within those plats that is typically about 66 feet in width, which is a standard right-of-way width in most plats. So this figure illustrates a little bit better the first segment of road that lies within the DNR administered lands, and then the roadway comes back up out of Mission Township and back into Cross Lake within the platted right-of-way area, and extends on up to the northeast where the roadway ends at a turnaround. That's where the city maintenance vehicles turn around. When we look at assessment projects, we start to look at the property ownership within the plats, and also, as many of you are aware, a lot of the platted lots are long and narrow within the plats. Many are jointly owned or contiguous to each other, are in one ownership, sometimes 2, 3, 4 lots at a time. And we've attempted to try to group those up. A lot of these lots have homes that straddle these original plat lines. And so we consider them to be one lot. There are some side roads or side streets that the city does not maintain, particularly the ones that are shown on this drawing. The city is not proposing to improve any of those roadways within this project scope. It's only the existing paved portion of Big Pine Trail that the city has been maintaining, that the city wants to upgrade. And this particular road has been included within all of the city streets in its road inventory into a long-range capital improvement plan. The last time this roadway was paved was in, it was 21 years ago, 1999. There was an 1.5 inch overlay placed on the roadway. The width of the road is about 22 feet in width, pavement width. It does narrow up when you get toward the end of the road. So it's slightly less than 20 feet in width when you get to the east end. So that would be the area where the roadway starts to narrow a bit. Also, it's worthy of noting that the roadway doesn't lie within the center of the platted right-of-way. It appears to wander around within that 66-foot width, sometimes on the north side, sometimes on the south side, and it may even encroach onto private property on the east end of the roadway. Those 3 dark patches that we're showing on this particular slide show some areas where the city had considered subcutting the roadway prior to overlaying it in 1999. In lieu of that, a mat was placed and tacked down over those areas where the roadway was cracking and deflecting to see if that would be a lesser cost remedy for those areas. And then the roadway was overlaid. So those areas have not been subcut. They've had a mat inlayment placed, and you know, over the course of the past 21 years, they seem to have held up for the most part. But the roadway, if you look at it today, has what we call transverse cracking, which is cracking that goes across the roadway from the direction of travel. About every 10 to 15 feet, there's a crack, and we start to see cracking that goes lengthwise with the road in some areas. And that's really an indicator of some subgrade issues and maybe poor drainage in some spots. So the road loses its strength typically in the spring, and that's why load restrictions are put on all throughout the city and throughout the county during that time period. So that's when we would expect most of the pavement failure to occur. The city's invested maintenance dollars into this road with crack sealing over the past 21 years. it isn't done every year, but I believe it was done probably within the last 2 years, if I'm correct, Ted. 2018. Also, the city's been trying to manage some potholes out there. Pretty common to almost all the city streets, especially this time of the year when we get hot and cold spells and the roadways move around quite a lot. But over the course of 21 years, the city has invested some maintenance dollars into this road, and with the amount of cracking on it, it's come up as a road that had originally been planned to be resurfaced or reconstructed in about 2021, 22, somewhere in there, within the next 5 years. And with the project, with the dam project out there, that wasn't necessarily the primary catalyst for the city to say, hey, let's do it in 2020, but it was something that the city considered in adding this project this year to its street improvement projects, which there are other roads that the city is considering doing. This would be added to that contract to get the benefit of larger quantities and better unit prices. To do it in 2020 following the dam project so that everybody would have a good road to drive on. And the city wouldn't have to spend another round of crack sealing and potentially other maintenance costs on the roadway. So the project was moved up to 2020, and that's where we're at today in this feasibility study process.
Dave, is your intent, could I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Is your intent to correct the alignment of the road in the right-of-way as part of this project?
We haven't built in costs to our estimate that you have before you in this study to do a major road realignment. So no, the answer is no. It would basically be along the same alignment with a little bit of widening from what it is right now today. It's 22 feet in width for probably about 85 to 90% of the road length. Down toward the east end, it starts to narrow up. It starts to get a little bit less than 20 feet in width. The city standard, which these design sections are what the city adopted for its road standards quite a long time ago. And it's generally based on how many lots are served and a projected number of average daily trips made by each residence or lot along a roadway. We've got over 70 different lots along Big Pine Trail, and that would put it into what the city's categorization would be a major rural roadway, which is a 24-foot wide pavement. And to carry that traffic level, that's what we would recommend to the city, to widen it from 22 to 24. Typically we do that on each side, so we'd add a foot to each side of the roadway. If the alignment is severely encroaching in toward a certain side of the right-of-way or onto private property, we'd look at adding it on toward the center of the right-of-way. So that's the proposal, is to widen it to a full 24-foot width all the way to the end and reconstruct the turnaround at the east end. The turnaround wouldn't necessarily have to be that big, but big enough to meet the city standards to be able to turn plow trucks around and city maintenance vehicles. Okay, this is the cost estimate from the feasibility study. It provides quantities that are estimated for this length of roadway that's just under 8,000 feet in length. We would do a full depth reclamation of the pavement that's there. That means that there would be a piece of equipment that would grind up the road in place and blend it with base materials that are there. And then we would blade those out to get our width, add some aggregate base. We'd do some subgrade correction in those areas that we feel needed, which means possibly removing some of that subgrade material that's not very stable and bringing some granular sand material back in that's stable and could be compacted. And then we'd bring it back to a pavement condition again with a new pavement course. So that's what all of that means when you look at that top section. It's all of the typical highway construction work items that would go into a project that the city's doing. And we're estimating what the unit prices are going to be if the city were to bid this out, based more or less on what bid prices the city received last year and the year before. And we anticipate that every year prices are typically not going to go down, they're going to go up, but you can really only know the price of a project once you've bundled it up together and put it out there for bid, and you see what you get. So, but I can tell you, back when we did the overlay back in 1999, the price per ton for blacktop material was probably closer to $25 to $26 a ton, and prices here in the last year or two have been up around $70 to $75 per ton. So this cost estimate also includes a construction contingency of 10%, which is a standard practice when doing a feasibility study estimate. It also includes costs for preparing the plans and specifications, for having a construction observer out there during the construction phase, the administrative and legal costs that typically go into a Chapter 429 special assessment project. And the total estimated project cost at this point is $664,000. So next we'll talk about the methodology that the city is proposing to use when it comes to the assessments. So the city's assessment ordinance that it adopted is based on value or benefit to a property based on a given improvement. It's not based on the project cost. It's not based on a set percentage of a project cost being assessed. It's based on an appraiser's opinion, benefit value opinion of a road reconstruction project like this to the variety of properties that exist along the roadway. And we've got a few different situations on this road. We've got people that own property that abut directly onto the road and also have lake shores. So they're lake lots with direct frontage. And then we have properties that do not abut the roadway itself, but are lake lots. Okay, they use secondary roads to get to Big Pine Trail. We have some lots that are undeveloped. They're just bare land and acreage. And so the city's appraiser that was hired to do this benefit of value opinion and report prepared their estimate in each of these cases for what they felt was a range of value of benefit to the property owners. And that report is included as an attachment to the feasibility study itself. And this feasibility study is available at City Hall. So if any of you would like to sit down and read through that, all of it, you can. Okay, so when we look at project implementation, the city's taking into consideration the appraiser's benefit opinion and the ranges that they gave. And we're looking at all of the properties out there with approximately 37 properties being lake home site with direct access, 11 properties that are lake home sites that have indirect access. There are non-lake properties, home sites, and then there are some that are just acreage, they're just land. So the feeling of the city was to look at the assessed range in each category and utilize the lowest amount of the range rather than something higher, distributing higher percentage of assessments to the residents. So we took the lowest value given by the appraiser for each of these property categories. And so, for instance, a single-family home site that is a lake property with direct access to the road, in this scenario, would receive a $5,000 assessment for the project. A single-family home that is not a lake lot would receive, and that does have direct access, would receive a $4,000 assessment. And where it is bare land without necessarily direct access, the range was anywhere from $50 to $200 per acre. The city is looking at $50 per acre, and I believe we have a couple of parcels that are out there that one is approximately 2 acres, one's about 12 acres, so that would range anywhere from a $100 assessment to a $600 assessment on that basis. Okay. So when we go through all those properties and we look at what's being assessed, we're sitting at about 46% of the estimated project being assessed. That's about $305,000. Okay. And the city's portion of the project cost would be about 54%, or just under $360,000. This next slide gives you an idea of what a typical project schedule will be. And we are at the fourth line down. We're having the preliminary hearing on improvement. It was originally scheduled for around January 31st. This is a city-initiated project, which means that we need a 4/5 vote of the city council at every step along the way of this project. And we just were not able to do that back in January. This is the first available date that we could get all four of the 5 council people here to have this hearing and to hold a council meeting to decide on moving the next step of putting plans and specifications together. Okay? So you can go from about the fourth line down and move everything out a month and Should this move forward with the City Council this afternoon, then plans and specs would be prepared and the project would be put out for bid. If the bids come back satisfactory, then 4/5 vote of the council would be needed once again to approve the bid and sign a contract to do the construction. At that time, the City Council could decide to hold the final assessment hearing, and you would all receive notice once again to come back to the City Council after you've received your notice of assessment and what the city is asking you to pay for the project, and you would be able to address the City Council on your assessment of value for the project. Okay? So the earliest that would take place would probably be sometime midsummer. At the City Council's discretion, they could wait until the end of the project and hold it in the fall. But the city would like to record the assessment roll with the county auditor typically by no later than mid-November, so that it can be placed on the tax rolls and for taxes payable for 2020. All right. Once the council adopts an assessment roll, there's a 30-day period where everyone would have the opportunity by state law to pay their assessment in full without accruing any interest. But otherwise, the city would set an interest rate and a period of assessment for this project, and typically that would go out over about 10 years. And if we took the assessment interest rate at 5%, I could give you an idea of what the annual payment would be on your taxes. So for a $5,000 assessment over a 10-year period at 5% interest, the annual payment would be about $648. And for a $4,000 assessment, about $518 over the next 10 years. Okay. Some of the properties that we looked at were non-lake, indirect access. They would be assessed around $2,000. And so a $2,000 assessment over 10 years at 5% interest is about $259 per year for the next 10 years. But those, the interest rate and the period is set by the City Council. Okay? This is an example. Okay. I think that goes through all the information that we needed to cover. At this point, if there's questions from the City Council, we'll take those.
Okay, I got a question, Brad. It's probably directed for you. What prompted this is the reconstruction of the rock dam. That's what brought this kind of into this year's schedule. As part of that reconstruction agreement we had, did we agree to redo the road after the construction project was done, or did we agree to just relieve the contractor of the liability of having to redo the road?
I assume the latter, but I don't remember. Do you have it in front of you, Mike? Yeah.
You want to put it up?
Sure.
Yeah.
Should I bother with putting it on the screen, or?
Yeah, it should be on the last page of that.
But I don't want to screw up the technology again here. Just reading the last part here, it's pretty small print, but it tells me that we're just agreeing to let them off. You know, we want them to complete the job, and it's our problem to redo the road, but it's on our timetable. So for example, if there's a lot of negative feedback, or if the bids come in bad, I don't believe on quick read there that we made any promise to do it in 2020, for example.
We just relieve them of the liability of
Right.
having to repair it. Okay.
But as Dave said, I mean, that was one reason that this road needs to get rebuilt. I mean, there's other reasons. It's an old road anyway. So this was more about liability of their doing the work. The road would have had to have happened this year or next year or the year after pretty soon anyway.
Correct.
Dave, do you know how far along they are with the dam project as far as bringing material in there?
I did ask the assistant county engineer that question just this morning, and his best guess is that they'll be done hauling material around mid-March, and that the project could be completed by the end of March.
So we're going to have heavy rock coming over that stretch of road yet for another month,
Yes.
better part of it. Okay. Because I'm worried about the damage that's going to be done between now and then. The road is 21 years old now, has a 20 to 25-year lifespan. How much is it? What is typical increase on an annual basis if you delay a project from 1 year to another to another? Let's say we brought this out 2 years.
I would expect anywhere from around a 2.5% increase per year. And so in looking at this particular road, that's probably around $15,000 a year.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm wondering how much the price of the
But if you
work
play
is
with
going to increase.
If you play with the math on that, if it's a $600,000 road in today's dollars, and it's a 20-year road, it costs $30,000 a year to have the road. I mean, if you do that, so. But, you know, we got a lot of people here, and they got a lot to say, so that's kind of. Anybody else have anything to say? Let's let the public have it.
Okay. If you have something to say, please come up to the podium and state your name and your address. And this is for the record for the project.
Good afternoon, Mayor Nevin, City Council members, and City staff members. My name is Ken Ormsby, and I'm president of Big Pine Lake Association. I am currently recovering from bronchitis and can't breathe very well or speak very well, so I apologize in advance for my voice. On behalf of BPLA's members and non-members alike, I thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present comments on the proposed 2020 Big Pine Trail reconstruction project. On February 14th, I emailed a letter to Mayor Nevin outlining some of the property owners' concerns. I was told that that letter is part of your information packet today. In a nutshell, the property owners are not in complete opposition to the project. They are simply not in agreement on the timing of the project or the need for it to be implemented in 2020. They are also questioning the roadway classification and assessment methodology. According to Nagel Appraisal's preliminary opinion, Big Pine Trail is, quote, beginning to look dated, and that the road condition is rated to be fair, unquote. So according to the professional appraiser hired by the city, the road that is scheduled for wholesale replacement this summer is just now beginning to look dated and is deemed to be in fair condition. Page 4 of the feasibility report states that Rock hauling related to the rock dam replacement project is anticipated to, quote, cause stress and cracking of the existing pavement, unquote. At this time, it is estimated that 30 to 40% of the materials have already been delivered to the rock dam or are already on site. And as of today, there is no evidence that any rock hauling related damage has occurred whatsoever. Additionally, the feasibility report classifies Big Pine Trail as a major rural roadway. According to the report, this is based solely on the number of lots served by the road and the fact that there is a public lake access located on Big Pine Trail. The details not mentioned in the report are that the entrance to the public lake access is located at the very beginning of Big Pine Trail off County Road 3, and that there are only a small handful of year-round residents who actually live on Big Pine Trail. The vast majority of Big Pine Trail property owners essentially spend weekends at their cabins 4 months out of the year. And on the south side of Big Pine Trail, there are only a total of 6 residences out of the 21 lots referenced in the feasibility report. So less than 30% of those lots house people who actually drive vehicles. The feasibility report states that no traffic counts have been taken on Big Pine Trail and that a rural roadway, one step down from a major rural roadway, is allowed up to 400 average daily traffic counts, or ADTs, within that classification. So it is difficult to envision ADTs that even exceed 100 for about 7 to 8 months out of the year when fewer than a dozen or so residents are actually at their cabins. The report also shows that roadways classified as minor rural roadways can have up to 25 lots on them. One would assume that the word lot is meant to reflect the number of inhabited residences on a given road, since empty cabins and vacant lots don't generate traffic. Given this, for 7 to 8 months out of the year, Big Pine Trail could likely be classified as a minor rural roadway, since there are less than a dozen residents using the roadway on a year-round basis. The above points to the need for seasonal traffic counts to be measured so that an annual average daily traffic count, or AADT, can be established as a means of properly classifying Big Pine Trail. Regarding Nagel's preliminary opinion, their letter report states that it is, quote, not an appraisal and does not incorporate actual sales data, unquote. Rather, it is simply an opinion based on, quote, drive-by viewing, past appraisals, experience, and market information, unquote. In terms of market information, Nagel provides an area description in the report that references average residential property sale prices within Cross Lake city limits of about $430,000 based on MLS statistics. Since the letter report doesn't contain an actual average of sale prices along Big Pine Trail over the last 3 to 5 years, it can only be assumed that $430,000 is Nagel's basis for their calculation of assessment benefit per lot type. Regarding this average, property values on Big Pine Lake can run as much as 50% less than equivalent properties on the Whitefish chain, based on comparable structure square footages, total acreage, and linear feet of shoreline. Given that Nagel's preliminary opinion is obviously a cursory assessment of single-family home values in the city of Cross Lake, there are serious questions and doubts as to the accuracy of Nagel's opinion as it relates to residences on Big Pine Trail. A much more accurate and useful approach would have been to run a 3-year MLS sold properties report for Big Pine Trail, Big Pine Hollow Road, and Big Pine Drive. Had such a report been run, it would undoubtedly have shown an average sale price much closer to $250,000 than $430,000. Given that today's hearing is taking place in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday in February, the vast majority of property owners on the south side of Big Pine Lake are not able to be in town. As such, the Board of Directors of BPLA decided that the only way for property owners to effectively voice their opinions to the Cross Lake City Council would be through a formal petition. As such, BPLA distributed petitions via email on February 16th, asking for responses in writing indicating either support or opposition to the petition. The following are the results of the, quote, petition to the City of Cross Lake to postpone the proposed 2020 reconstruction of Big Pine Trail, unquote. The feasibility report states that there are 52 properties located on the north side of Big Pine Trail and 21 on the south side. Of these, 50 of the north side properties and only 6 of the south side properties are actual residences. Of the 37 BPLA members who own properties on the north side of Big Pine Trail, 34 of them, or 92%, have responded to the petition. Of the total universe of 50 north side residential properties, the owners of 40 of those properties, or 80%, responded to the petition. There are only 3 property owners on the south side of Big Pine Trail who are BPLA members. All 3 of those owners responded to the petition along with other non-members. In total, the owners of 8 properties located on the south side of Big Pine Trail responded to the petition. Including BPLA members and non-members alike, 100% of those that responded elected to support the petition. Not a single property owner opposed the petition. Obviously, property owners on the south side of Big Pine Lake are overwhelmingly in favor of postponing the proposed 2020 reconstruction of Big Pine Trail. In light of the fact that most residents were not able to attend today's hearings, we ask that you consider their petition votes to serve as valid proxies for their in-person opinions. This all leads to a few fairly simple and straightforward questions that really need to be answered before this project proceeds. One, if Big Pine Trail is just beginning to look dated and has been assessed to be in fair condition with virtually no potholes or loose asphalt present, why is it being slated for a $664,000 wholesale replacement in 2020 with 46% of the cost coming at residents' expense and 54% at taxpayers' expense? Number 2, given that no seasonal traffic counts have been performed as the basis of Big Pine Trail's roadway classification, given that an actual appraisal has not been performed, and given that Nagel's preliminary opinion incorporated no actual sales data with which to establish property values along Big Pine Trail, why does the City of Cross Lake appear to be in such a rush to replace a perfectly good road before the potential impacts of dam replacement have even been determined? Number 3, if Big Pine Trail were to be classified as something less than a major rural roadway, what impact could that have in terms of reduced costs? And lastly, why would the City of Cross Lake proceed with the proposed Big Pine Trail reconstruction project this summer when 80% of Big Pine Trail property owners have provided written indication of their desire to have the project postponed, and not a single property owner having opposed postponing the project? Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and City staff members for your consideration. Unless there are questions, that concludes my comments. Excuse me.
Mr. Ormsby, I got a question. There's 20% of the people that did not respond to the petition, and none of them was in favor of the road project. Is that true?
The 20% that we didn't receive responses from are not members, and we don't have email addresses or anything, but we didn't receive any responses from either members or non-members opposing the petition.
The postponement.
Not all of us were contacted.
Okay, well, that's hard to do. That was my next question, is how long ago did you try to get the petition filled out?
It was sent out on February 16th.
So, a week.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did it all myself, so I just
right.
didn't have.
I mean, that's
no
kind of
time.
short notice, especially this time of year. Thank you, and that was a
Roy,
very
I
good
don't think you
report.
have an email address, do you?
No, I don't. But there was nothing sent out in the mail
Why don't you
to
hold up
the
a-
addresses.
Tell us
Hold
who you
up
are.
a second till we're done here, then we'll let you talk.
Yeah, we'll come.
Please.
Okay, anybody else have anything else for Ken?
Not at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, tell us who you are and where you live, will you? And then let us have it.
I'm Roy Lanners, live on Big Pine Drive. I was never notified by the association. I have a mailbox, I have a mailing address, and some of those members know where I live. None of them approached me.
Roy,
Your house was visited in person and you're not there.
When?
Okay,
We're not going to have a conversation.
yeah.
yeah.
Roy, did the city notify you of this assessment hearing?
The two letters I got was one from here talking about this meeting.
Okay, so you were
The other
notified of
letter I
that.
received back in December, I believe, was notifying me about when the rock dam construction was going to start. That's it.
Okay, well, Ken, at a last-ditch effort, put a good valiant of effort into getting everybody. He didn't get a hold of you.
If
I
they
wouldn't hold it
showed
against
up,
him.
they could have left paperwork. None
Well-
was left.
Okay,
And I'm trying to keep my voice down.
yeah, good, okay.
The question that was brought up was, what do you guys call direct access? What's your definition?
If your
'Cause I
driveway,
have a lake place, but
We'll
I
let
don't
him answer
have
that.
direct access. My driveway doesn't come out on Big Pine Trail.
Okay.
Which category do I fall under?
Let me answer that if I can. So if your driveway access does not come out on Big Pine Trail, then you don't have direct access.
So what category do I fall?
indirect? I mean, is that what you call it?
Cost.
Okay.
He has it on the indirect lake lot.
You have a lake lot?
Yes.
Okay. So you would have a lake home site with indirect access, and that is $2,500
So that's half of what the direct access,
Per lot?
per lot.
Okay, so I'd be stuck for 5.
No,
Well,
he said,
I
he
have
said
2
earlier.
lots.
He said earlier that we combined some lots, so he could, after the meeting, tell you how many lots he would have assigned to you. Because just because you have 5 legal lots doesn't mean he
I have 2.
gave you 5.
I have 2, so I'm saying 5,000.
Right. But for all of you, I mean, that's just good to know. I mean, Dave said it in the beginning, but if anyone wants to know in particular, he lumped some lots together if they're smaller lots.
Right.
Yeah.
The other question I would have, and when you're redoing this road, are you going to put the sewer in at the same time? So it doesn't have to be dug up again later?
there's no plan for sewer down on that end.
Now, originally, when this city talked about a sewer system, they were talking about going out to every lake.
That's a long
And this lake is
way
within the
down
city
there.
limits, that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, no, I know, we've thought about it, but that's a long way to go for sewer.
It is.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any plan for sewer down there
Nothing in the near or foreseeable future.
in the
Okay.
lifetime of this roadway.
But keep in mind, this council changes every 2 years.
I understand that,
Okay.
that's why I ask a question now.
Yep.
I'm not going to hold you to it, I can't. Now, when you're redoing the road and it gets tore up the way it sounds, are we going to be restricted as to what time of the day we can drive on it?
So these projects are done under traffic normally. So you'll have to drive on basically a gravel road for a while.
Right.
And that's what you should expect.
But you should be able to get through at any time. I mean,
And
that's,
a simple question I ask ahead of time,
yeah.
because I
You
live
have
on,
four-wheel drive, don't you?
unfortunately, only on one vehicle.
Okay.
And the
No.
Harley's not four-wheel
You
drive
should be able
either.
to get through all the time.
If the road is widened like even a foot, there's going to be new mailboxes up. The stands, the pipes will have to be put in.
I think they've got a provision in there for that.
Okay. The mailboxes that are out there now, will they be used again, or are you guys buying us new ones?
Dave?
Let me answer that. So the city has adopted a policy of replacing all the mailbox supports with swingaways. Swingaways are the ones that you typically see on county roads. And on every road project that the city has done, at least for the past 5 years or so, we've been replacing the mailbox supports with the swingaways. You'll get your same mailbox back on the swingaway unless it's one of those types of mailboxes that we just can't transfer. And then in that case, it'll be a standard black 9-inch mailbox.
I got a big one.
Supplied by the city?
Be the same.
Dave?
Supplied by the city.
Yeah, so.
Mine's a little bit bigger than the average one, and my mail carrier loves it because he can put small packages in it. That's why I got it. I just wanted to
Might
make
be a
sure it's
little
gonna be
above
used
and
again.
beyond. That might be a little above and beyond, but I'm sure they'll figure something out.
Well, it'll get back up, even if
Yeah.
I have to do it. When you widen the roads, like you were talking about, you're only going about a foot on each side. Will that also have an approach down into Big Pine Drive and Big Pine Hollow? Because it's just dirt from there on in, on both of those two.
Yeah. So whenever we come across another road intersection, we'll typically pave out an approach. It won't go a significant distance back in, but enough to try to establish it and keep people from rutting the entrance up.
And breaking the road up.
Exactly.
Thank
Yeah.
you. With Big Pine Drive being designated by the city as a private road, that's why I asked that question.
Yep.
The city won't maintain it. They won't even put it in all the way. But at the start of Big Pine Drive, it's headed down to the lake. It's a deeded access for the people on the south side of Big Pine Trail. And the city does not maintain that access, like they don't a lot of other ones.
Yeah, right.
That's why I asked about the approach. It would help protect Big Pine Trail from being busted up from the weight of the vehicles.
Yep. No, I'm sure they'll do an approach first, yeah.
What about the highline poles that are about maybe 2.5 feet off the road? Is there a provision to move them things away, further away from the road?
We addressed that question. We noted it in our report that they are too close, and that has to be a further discussion with the power company.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fair enough. What about the well, I know this is a totally different one, but the city, are they going to come down that road and have the gas company come and mark where that gas line is, where it crosses people's properties without written permission?
There's natural gas down there, I'm assuming. That's a utility thing. I don't.
Yeah, so if this is authorized to go to design, prepare plans and specs for bidding, the typical procedure is to have the utilities marked and surveyed by our survey crews. So whatever gets marked by the utilities or their locators will get surveyed and put onto the plans. Then the contractor is also responsible to have all the utilities marked before they begin any excavation. So there's actually twice that they'll have to get marked
But will
during
they
the
be
course of the project.
permanently marked when they're done?
That I can't answer. That would be the gas company.
Because I think his drops back down in a ways. You're actually in there not just a few feet, but yards,
Mhm.
if I'm remembering your place right,
Yeah.
okay?
Because
And
it comes
he's
down
back
Big
in
Pine
enough
Drive.
where, doing road construction, they're not going to mark that far in, but I believe that's what he's requesting.
So are you worried about,
Permanently marked. I
Are
don't
you
know
worried
if just
about-
painted lines.
worried about damaging it or something, plowing, or?
A 4-inch gas main, I'd sure like to know where it is, especially when it comes time to digging without talking to them. If there's a flag there or a permanent marker, which they make, they should be put up. This one goes across 2 lots, my 2, the neighbors, and the next 4, before it comes out on Big Pine Hollow.
I think you probably got to
That's
call.
a safety issue for the city to think about.
Well, or the gas company, or somebody, yeah. I mean, I would think they would be out there at that time, and
Thank you.
But no guarantees they're
Yeah,
down
we
in
don't-
that deep.
I'm just bringing it
Yeah,
to your attention.
Yeah,
we're not a gas utility, so
I know.
we don't have a lot to do with that.
I know, because it became an issue a few years ago. And when it was put in, I was never asked. But it went in when I owned the property.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
I think they'll be cooperative when they're down there, Roy, and they'll do whatever they can do. I mean, that's... Anybody else? Mr. Dorfler.
Joe Dorfler, Big Pine Trail. Been a resident here for quite a while. And my big concern, and believe me, I've been coming up here as a kid back in the 50s. And I wouldn't stake your life or my life on that dam project. That's my only concern. I would like to see the road project taken maybe a year to make sure that dam holds and everything is all right. Because what's going to happen is we're going to have the same thing happen. If something happens down there, goodbye road. It's going to be worse. With all the traffic on there, they're going to have to haul in, take out, whatever. And we've had that since way back in the 50s. And I was one that I got pictures in the paper, and in fact, I was the one that had the paper come out and take pictures of the pontoons sitting on the ground next to the lot, to their, beaches.
Hopefully this will
There was
correct.
no water at all in Big Pine, just out there in the deep portion, small, otherwise everything else was dirt. You could walk out to the water, say maybe in front of my place, I live off the lake, but you could walk out a good
100
damn near
yards.
100 feet before you even got your feet wet. It would, and I mean, it was really bad. I have the pictures yet on that, the newspaper on that. And we've been poking money in that dam so long before the city got involved in it and stuff like that. It's unbelievable.
Joe, are you part of the Lake Association?
Pardon?
Are you a member of the Lake
No.
Association?
No.
You're not, yeah. Okay.
I used to be years ago. Now, I live off the lake and the south side of Big Pine. And my concern is, I'm right on the Big Pine Trail, and my concern is, I would just like to see it postponed to make sure, because I'd hate to see that, because who's going to fix it? If the dam, something goes wrong
Yeah, I
with the
don't
dam and
disagree
they
with
come
that.
in,
Yeah.
who, are we going to end up getting assessed again? This is my question. And we're going back into 50s now. That dam has given us trouble ever since the 50s. And I would just like to see it, I know.
See if it's gonna work.
I know there's funding and everything is going to go up, but what's going to happen if we have problems? I don't know the whole thing about this. I've been in the hospital and stuff like that. I've had some medical problems. So I haven't heard, and I got one letter from you, from the city council, from the city, and that was it. Otherwise, I signed a petition that my neighbor came around with. But other than that, I haven't heard nothing about it and stuff like that. I got a letter just the other day from you, and but this is my concern, and we've seen it over and over again. I mean, it's just like, it's going to happen. I would just say let's please wait and see what that dam. If we can postpone it a year, it would be to the benefit, even if the price went up. Take that money and put it in another road project, and because I'm afraid if we don't wait at least a year, we're going to have some problems.
Yeah, could I ask Mr. Ormsby, could I ask you to come up again? I got a question for you. Representing the Big Pine Lake Association, if we were to delay this for 1 or 2 years and the road falls apart in June after the construction is done, would you guys be willing to live with that for 1 or 2 years?
According to feedback that I've received from property owners on Big Pine Trail, Big Pine Hollow, and Big Pine Drive, yes. If in the next 30 days or so, the road became completely trashed, residents are willing to live with it, then, if the road is actually in poor condition and isn't safe, then I think that people would hope that it would be replaced in 2021.
See, this is not an opportune time to do this kind of stuff in town. February, people not here, I agree with that 100%, but it's a very opportune time to put things out for estimate, for bids, for the summer work. And if we miss that window, we miss it.
I am confident in saying that everyone is fine with the summer of 2020 and that they would prefer to assess, if they're actually, how much damage is done, if any. And if it isn't, I think just the whole issue of property value appreciation, is not strongly believed by most property owners.
Yeah, right.
So it's an issue of, public safety and usability of the road for residents.
Okay, I'm good. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for him?
Not for either of them.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
I do have one for Mike. There's a grant tied into that dam. How are we connected legally to anything in there?
I won't answer a legal question.
No, I understand that.
But the grant application, my understanding, and Beth Hippert from Soil and Water Conservation is here to answer any questions related to that. My understanding of how that worked was it was key to getting the funding for the dam to make sure the road was not part of the project, to tie it into the funding. So the city took responsibility for the road because they didn't want to use
But it would be our discretion whether it was 2020, 2021, or
no, it wasn't our
without it
discretion.
affecting or appearing to affect anything.
We needed to have the memorandum of understanding Brad put up in place in order for soil and water conservation to receive funding.
I think to answer it another way, they're not the grant and the dam, they wanted that separate from the road project.
Yes.
That's a city road. It's going to be done through this process, whatever year we choose to.
Okay.
It's not, they don't want it connected to the dam project.
So is Ms. Hippert here now? Mm-hmm. Could you come up and address that with us?
Sure.
I should recognize you, sorry.
All right.
So you understand the question?
Yeah, I understand the question. The question is the road project tied to the grant dollars and the funding? And no, it was not. But when we went to testify to the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Council, it was very important to that testimony that we had proof. We had the city behind us, and the city I shouldn't say behind us, the city taking responsibility for that road so it could be eliminated from the project, the scope of the project.
I don't
for bidding
think that's
purposes.
disputed at all. It's
Yeah,
just
so
a timing thing.
So, right, the timing, no, at all, not at all. But the award of the grant, was that, yeah, that was kind of contingent on that and the commitment by the city to take responsibility for it. The unknowns were, when would that project start? Because we gave the contractor a year to install it once the bid was awarded. The contract was awarded to the contractor. We gave them till December, I think it was 2020, to complete construction. So we didn't know if that construction was going to start. You didn't know, as a city, if that construction would start in January, which was perfect timing for hauling rock on roads, right? Or when it would occur. So
based on the conversation that you're hearing here, do you see us jeopardizing anything with
No.
any grant companies if we were to postpone something for a period of time?
No.
2 years maybe, or something?
No, it was just the scope of the project.
Releasing liability from them. Okay, thank you.
I got a question for Ted.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Ted, what do you consider the condition of that road, and what do you think it's going to cause as cost for the city over the next year if we decide to delay it?
Well, that's my question, is where am I going to get the money to do repairs if this comes up?
Okay, can I ask you a question following that one up? Do you have any idea of how much it cost the city in 2018 to do the repairs that they did to the road?
What we've done so far is we crack sealed.
Yep.
And we did pothole patching. We probably spent $7,000, $8,000 in that season. This past season, we just did some minor pothole patching. I'm just speaking from my past experience when these roads are done in the wintertime. Twice I've been involved with something like this. I've seen it where the wheel ruts are like this, going between the duals, and the asphalt is in chunks. And I just want everybody to be aware that it's almost impassable, because what's happening is this freeze-thaw cycle right now. It's huge. That frost could go out of the road in that lowlands tomorrow, and you'd have a huge issue with those trucks hauling on it. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. It could be a very significant amount of money that we're going to be hauling base back in trying to build a road. I know the contractor is responsible for minor repairs of the project, but I just want everybody to be aware that that could happen.
Is there anything you could do with the contractor to try to get them to do their significant hauling on colder days?
We don't, remember I said that we don't have any, we left it open.
Yeah.
As long as they're underneath and not hauling excessive big loads, there's nothing we can do until it gets to road restriction time.
Okay.
My name is Nancy Rudberg. I live at 14072 Big Pine Trail. First, I'd like to thank Ken for the wonderful job that he's done putting this whole project together. I was president of the association for many years, and I know it's not easy, so I want to thank him for doing that. Second, to those people who claim they don't know what's going on with the dam or anything else, I'd like to suggest that they become members. The communication from the board is wonderful, and if they became members, they'd have more knowledge about what's going on. Ken did a really good job of addressing the issues that I had, so I'm going to be real brief here. And I'm not going to get into issues about the condition of the road, but there's one thing I'd like to point out in particular that is on page 3 of the feasibility study. The road is approximately 8,000 feet long. Of that 8,000 feet, 3,160 is owned on both sides of the roads by either the state of Minnesota or the DNR. Beyond that part of the road, there's another 1,835 feet that is owned by the state. So I don't know if that's typical of city roads up here that are on lakes. It seems to me, and I was never very good at math, I apologize, but that seems like it's pretty close to 50% of the road that is not going to have any assessments against any residents. So I think that puts a very unfair burden on the residents as far as paying for the road. The second thing that I would like to question is the benefit to the landowners. Now, it's my understanding that the assessment itself is based on the benefit that the improvement gives to the landowners. And my question to you folks is, we're talking about a road. I own a house that's on the lake. I have a beautiful lake in my front yard. Yes, that lake makes my property more valuable, so I should be taxed at a higher rate. But there's a road that goes on this side of my property. How do I get more benefit from that road than my neighbors who are right across the street? It doesn't seem to me that, a road gives any more benefit to a lake owner than to a non-lake owner. And it's my understanding that this type of assessment is something the city is also looking at when they do future sewer expansion, to assess the lake people more than the people on the other side of the road. And to me, that just doesn't seem right. I think any assessments should be equal for all types of property that use the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Bueller. I have property on Big Pine Trail also. I just have one quick question. Has the city been assessing other projects on, let's say they're going to do a street over on Cross Lake? Are they assessing those homeowners to redo their roads also? Or is this the first that our road's being assessed and nobody else's is?
Should I answer that? Yeah. I think this is a new assessment policy. Well, I mean, it's just the city is implementing one. Yeah, good one. I don't know. How do you answer that, Mike? Do you want to help me with that?
This would be the second project we would have assessed under this policy.
Well, the second one today, we just...
Third. This would be the third one.
Yeah, we've had two today. This is not the first one. I don't know
Third one. It's not the first one.
Incorrect.
Yeah, but I mean, it's...
Well, we were just sat through one an hour ago.
No, I know that.
Yeah.
Same exact facts. We did
we
another
did.
assessment just like it. No, this is not the first one.
It's not the first and only, but historically, for the last 10 years, I mean, the city is deciding it can't do all this stuff, so we're trying to spread the burden out through assessments now.
Now, the question I have, and I think, Mike, this is probably more for you. We have another meeting coming March 31st.
23rd.
March 23rd?
No,
24th, yeah.
March 24th, okay.
I got one more question.
They got enough meetings going at me where I can. But March 24th, and that's where we do the final. We look at the bids and we find out and we say, yes, we're going to, or no, we're not going to.
I think that's just for the Daggett Bay Road project.
No, it said it for this one too, same dates.
No. That's just the Daggett Bay Road.
Daggett Bay.
Yeah.
And if the road is to be rebuilt, how thick is the asphalt going to be? You going to make it a 6-ton road, 8-ton road, 10-ton road? Do you have any idea how thick you're going to make the tar?
That would be the engineer's question.
Yeah. Because at 4 inches, it's what, 4,800 tons approximately. At $75 a ton, that's $360,000.
Okay, so what we're proposing to do is full depth reclaim, then add some additional aggregate base, and then 2 lifts of compacted bituminous that would, for a total thickness of 3 inches.
At 24 foot wide?
At 24 foot wide.
24 foot wide. 8,000 feet
Yeah.
at 3 inches. That's 3,600 tons of asphalt at $75 a ton.
Sounds like you got a job.
It's approximately $270,000 just for the asphalt. None of the reclamation, none of the other work.
No.
And I'm not sure what the price of asphalt is right now.
I got 270,000.
That's what I come up with.
It's all in the feasibility report. They do many, many road projects a year.
So the rest of the work is what adds up to the rest of it.
Yeah.
So
I'm just wondering if that's going to be enough with the full depth reclamation. A lot of times when you get into that, you run into a lot of soft spots. And I've been on many projects where, we're going to reclaim this. Well, you end up hauling out 4 feet and hauling back in 5 to get the base back to where.
yeah. That's why we have a 10% construction contingency that amounts to about $50,000.
Okay. I work road construction, so.
Maybe you can give us a deal.
All Anderson brothers.
I guess it's my turn.
All right.
Hi, my name is Gary Swanson. I live on 14270 Big Pine. And we just moved in about a year and a half ago, so a lot of this is new to us. So I really wanted to address more of some of the cost issues, and here are some of the questions, and maybe to the engineer. Ken, with a week and a half's notice, did a great job of getting as many people responded, and we may not have hit everyone, but I'm in the same camp. If we have to wait a year or two or even longer, we're okay with the road not being in perfect shape. I think we really need to look at the traffic counts. I do believe it's going to be a rural road as opposed to a major rural road, which would mean we would not have to expand the road. It's going to be the same size road that we're at. We don't have the expenses associated with mailboxes. I don't know what you're going to do with the signs, people's signs they have up there for the lake, if that's the same thing, if that's being replaced by the city as well. But a couple questions I have are, if this road is supposed to last for 20, 21 years, if it doesn't have the kind of traffic that we're seeing, which it really doesn't, this road could very well last much longer. Many roads last, 30 years, even longer. So if we're looking at crack repairs at $8,000 a year even, that's much less cost than the whole city having to pay for even half of this road and people across the lake. So the other question is what is the cost to rebuild a rural road versus a major rural road? So if this is the classification, it's much smaller, it doesn't need as much work. Is this something we can do to actually save costs? I'm sure the city obviously wants to do what they can to reduce their costs. Maybe it's a question if the engineer could answer that, see what kind of cost savings we could have by properly designing the road to specifications.
Well, we could put an estimate together for a 22-foot wide road, a 20-foot wide road. Our recommendation would not be to reduce the road width that you have out there right now, but we could certainly come up with a cost estimate that would estimate a 22-foot wide pavement.
Do you have any idea, an estimate? Is it going to be 25% less money? What's your best guess?
You could take 2 divided by 24, and that would be the fraction of the estimate for the bituminous pavement. So
The tar is the cheap part of the whole project. It's the dirt work and everything that is the most expensive part.
So that would be about a little over 8%, would be less cost in terms of blacktop. The blacktop cost $270,000. So you might save about $22,000 by narrowing it up in terms of blacktop material.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have to expand out, cut down more trees and all that would be needed.
We're really not planning on a lot of clearing and grubbing and that sort of thing. The clearing width on this roadway is really pretty good in comparison to a lot of streets around the city. And so that's not a big cost factor on this one.
Okay. So you're going from 22 to 28, and you don't think that's going to be a lot more cost? I mean, that's what you...
24 to 22 would
24 to
save.
22 is 300 tons less asphalt.
Okay. And what about another overlay? Is that an option? It's got to be a lot less cost, especially on a road that's not heavily traveled.
An overlay would be quite a bit less cost, but it really does not serve the city's purpose when it comes to reducing the long-term maintenance involved, because you'll have reflective cracking of all the cracks that are there will come right back up through that overlay, and you'll be spending the same amount of crack sealing effort every time. So.
Okay. Thank you. So we also talked to a number of realtors, and we don't see that the value of the properties are going to increase by any means. So looking at the Nagel report, if that's what you're basing the assessment on increased value to the property, I do not believe there's going to be any increased value. It's your opinion if you want to assess folks for these roads, and that's why you guys have the tough job up there to deal with that. But I don't think that's going to have any impact. And I guess want to echo the same that other people have talked about, that the road's in great shape now. They say fair, but it's in good shape. And I think we have to wait and see if there is going to be any damage and assess the road down the road. I think this same road will be able to last as is for a number of new years. And if we can save those costs and have some minor maintenance costs for repairing some cracks, that's what I'd like to see as a resident at that location. I think that answers most of the questions I have and the comments I have to make.
Thank you much.
So thank you very much for your time.
Anybody else? All right, let's close the public part of this. And what else do we have to do?
Just adjourn. I move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned.